Hailing frequencies open and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host Brian.
And I'm your co-host Jaci. I'm the Star Trek newbie who checks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode. And this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 10, The Corbomite Maneuver.
Close enough.
I always butcher it. Corbomite.
Corbomite, but
I'll get it.
thanks everyone for jumping back on board for another week, another episode. We appreciate you being here.
Corbomite.
And that's going to be the phrase of the day. A little housekeeping and show announcements before we get too far into things. If you're listening to this when it comes out in just a few short days, this Friday, the 26th, is the first episode where we dive into the animated series of Star Trek, the animated version of the original series. That'll be available over at our Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents, available to all crew members. Hopefully you consider signing up and checking it out. We really appreciate it.
As long as we get to say Corbomite more often.
We're just going to run that bit into the ground.
Well, no, seriously. Is the animated series, like, this one was real people, and then the next one is going to be animated, or is it a whole new storyline?
So it's a completely new storyline, different stories, different episodes, same characters, but it's like the 80s version, the 80s cartoon version of Beetlejuice or the Ghostbusters. It was a way for them to try to target a new audience. It was all created after the original series stopped airing, but we're just going to dive into it as a little bonus.
That sounds really good.
And as always, we appreciate everyone who continues to like, subscribe, comment, leaving feedback, leaving reviews for the show, but especially sharing the show with other friends that might find us interesting. That is, of course, the best way that we can continue to grow as a podcast is share it with a friend.
They might not even know they like Star Trek since, I'm only watching 10 episodes so far.
And the jury's still out whether you like it or not.
True.
But we're also, of course, open to any feedback to the podcast. We do this to entertain. And if we're not entertaining our audience, there's no point in doing it. So we're open to all constructive criticism. We're happy to listen. We want this show to be not just Jaci and my show, but our show, everyone's show. If you listen, if you participate, that's ideal for growth.
But don't be mean, because I cry.
Yes. If you don't want to leave feedback in any comment section, half of our audience knows us and just sends me messages. But if you don't have that inside track, we do have an email address that we use. It's treksandtangents@gmail.com. Always happy to receive fan mail there. Feel free to reach out to the show that way as well. And of course, as always, our social media will be listed in the episode description. But enough with housekeeping. Why don't we jump into the episode by revisiting last week's Turbo Lift tease? That's where we gave Jaci the title of this week's episode, and Jaci, without any other information, gave her prediction, or let's face it, best guess as to what the plot of the episode would be. And I have it here in front of me, and I quote, "I've heard that word before, and it was fake." That was the last episode when he was tricking people. Is this going to be a trick maneuver, or does it actually happen? Maybe he means a new maneuver like a pit maneuver, like the cops. Jaci, how close do you think your ramblings were to this week's episode's plot?
It was still a trick. I do not like this Corbomite maneuver at all. But I got it right.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to give you this one. I think in last week's episode, when you gave your Turbo Lift tease, I was thinking in reference to that was last week's episode. I was like, no, that Corbomite. I had to go back and look it up. I was like, no, Corbomite isn't mentioned in last week's episode. It's only mentioned in one other episode other than this, and that's later on in Star Trek. So
That's so weird, because I swear I heard it before.
I think what you might have been referring to was the Kobayashi maneuver.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Janeway maneuver.
I have no idea.
all of which are completely different. Those are specific ways to maneuver a ship to counteract enemy fire. That's an oversimplification, but Corbomite. No, I don't think it's mentioned anywhere else.
I made it up. Maybe it was a dream.
Maybe, but since you seem to think you got it right this week with your Turbolift tease, and you think you've heard Corbomite before, what did you think of this week's episode?
I actually liked it. I enjoyed the interaction between the crew. They were talking to each other more than going out on some random icy or windy planet and searching for something. This was all more inside the ship. And then we learned about the surprise, quote unquote. But the downfall of that is because I noticed all the bad makeup. Like, yeah. Well, you know how, like, we talked about how the earlier episodes, they were just kind of getting their groove. Is this part of that section? Because, man, we have a lot of bad makeup outfits going on.
This would have been something that would have been filmed after production started. This would not be a pilot episode. I didn't notice the bad makeup personally.
I saw Spock's ears a different color than his face.
That also very well could just be the fact that this is 1966 television and
and it was remastered. I could give that.
Yeah.
I've seen that in my John Wayne shows.
Definitely could just be we are viewing it in a resolution that it was not originally meant to be seen in. As, of course, you mentioned, this is a bottle episode. This takes place all on the Enterprise, one set. Even the final scenes on the alien ship are just redressed sets of the Enterprise. So I also really liked this episode. It has a lot more moments that someone might call filler, where there's a lot of them staring at the effects on the view screen, looking at the cube, looking at the alien ship. And there's a lot of pauses where not a lot is going on to advance the plot, but it's not really filler because it's creating this atmosphere for the episode.
Yes, because they're forced to be, they're under a time limit. And they are trying to figure out what to do. So it's like natural human actions. And then we have Spock going, this is stupid. Like, figure out a different way of doing something. That's not logical.
Right. And it leads to an episode that is driven more on atmosphere and overall themes to the episode, as opposed to let's try to cram in as much dialogue and as much facts and as much plot points as we can. I don't mind those episodes every once in a while. There's certainly episodes that benefit from that style, but it was just kind of nice as a nice little palate cleanser to say, we're only going to introduce 4 or 5 different major plot points, and we're going to rely on a lot more special effects, those shots, to build an atmosphere and a theme for the episode.
And we learn more about each character. I mean, especially my girl Janice. I mean, she's kind of funny. I love her.
Oh, Yeoman Janice Rand. I don't have any spoilers for it. We'll get there when we get there.
Okay, yes. I just love her. Except her ponytail was crooked.
Yes. We'll hold that against her. But with all that being said, why don't we just jump into it? Why don't you walk us through the episode, Jaci?
Alrighty. So when it starts, we don't see Kirk at all. Spock is in the main seat, like giving commands. And I'm like, where's Kirk? So we'll figure it out. And then we also have so you know how we first met Sulu in the plants with the plants, but now he's like on the bridge all the time. Does he ever have plants again?
No, I think you're referencing so early into Star Trek. I'm not going to say that Sulu was meant to be a botanist.
Okay, kind of like a feeler, like testing it out.
Yeah, they hadn't really finalized what each character's role was going to be.
Oh.
Like throughout the episodes, they continued to have the department heads come together to have these briefings and these meetings with Kirk, and
it's different faces.
And they eventually flesh out a lot of these episodes. A lot of these roles start to come together. Mr. Spock is the second in command. He's also the head science officer. Sulu has his own specialty, but we also will see in this episode that he is fully compliant and has the ability to be the navigator and input control into the ship and input instructions into the ship on steering and speed, because Mr. Bailey doesn't do it. Everyone's got their own little roles, and this early into Star Trek, everyone's still kind of feeling that out.
Yeah, like the cross training I brought up earlier.
Yes.
Okay, well, Sulu, and then you said Mr. Bailey, Lieutenant Bailey, he's another new face, and he is a navigator, and he reminds me of me at times because he questions, like legitimate questions, and he reacts with emotion. So we see through the screen in front of them is this giant cube that I kind of called like a Rubik's Cube because it's that shape and the numerous colors.
Yeah, or it could be a screensaver from Windows 98.
Yeah, that too. I just didn't remember that. But yes, and it didn't have the little tiny squares to move around, but I digress. He is kind of concerned, like, why is it in front of us? And Spock is like, just go around it. And he tries to go around it, but yet the cube gets back in front of him. And you can see that he's scared is probably the wrong word, but he's at least heightened emotions.
He being...
I'm sorry, Lieutenant Bailey. And Spock is like, calm down. You're fine. And then Lieutenant Bailey is like, I'm sorry, but I have like an adrenal gland. And Spock, of course, retorts, I looked into having that removed. So, I mean, so you learn more about their interactions.
And this is a good example of what I think I enjoy most about Spock and his character is the times that he says something like, you should get your adrenal gland removed. It's humor. It's extremely dry humor. And Spock is legitimately not trying to be funny, but he unintentionally is, which later translates when we get into the Next Generation. Data has this down to a core as well, and Data's one of my favorite characters in TNG. But
is Data like Spock? I have no idea.
The android who has no emotions, yeah, he's pretty similar to Spock.
Okay, we'll go with that.
We'll get there.
All right, so they obviously can't go around the cube because it keeps blocking them, and they're like, well, where's Kirk? We should probably let him know what's up.
Well, specifically, Spock calls for red alert before we get our opening credits.
Yes, because he was in charge, but then again, that's why, since I have no idea what's happening without, throughout the hierarchy, if he's in charge at that moment, he can do whatever he wants without running it by Kirk?
Within a certain set of parameters, I would say yes. Obviously, if something were quote unquote going down, they've encountered this mysterious cube.
Yes.
And while it's not letting them maneuver around it, and it obviously could pose a danger, could Spock order that they just blast it with the phasers and blow it out of the sky? Sure, he could. He's in charge. There'd be consequences later. That's why he summons the captain. Now reverse it. If the cube went on a ramming speed and it was in imminent danger of destroying the Enterprise, and Spock ordered the phasers to be fired, no one would question that.
Oh, that makes sense. But I did forget to mention that possibly Lieutenant Bailey's emotions are a bit on edge because they've been doing the star mapping where no one has been before for 3 days already, and he seems to be bored of it.
He's bored. They're in an area of space, as you said, no one has been before, so this is completely unknown. One could argue they're cut off from any help to address any problems they run into. It's probably extremely boring until they encounter this cube, at which point now it's incredibly
scary,
high risk.
So Spock calls for the red alert and it's blinking around, but then I mentioned, where's Kirk? Now we pop over to sick bay where he's doing, he's laying on his back doing like the bicycle exercise, but he's pushing down on like pads, but on the wall.
Pedals.
Yeah, that's my word. Yes, pedals. And McCoy is like, keep going, keep going. But he notices the red alert going.
He being Dr. McCoy.
Yes, thank you. But he doesn't do anything about it. He's like, keep going, Kirk. You have a few more seconds. And then he notates on his, the life monitor, how Kirk is doing. And then finally, when Kirk is done, Kirk notices that the red alert beeper timer light has been going off. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And then McCoy's like, if I spoke or talked about any blinking lights or noises in here, I'd be talking to myself. And ironically, he is talking to himself because Kirk is already out the room.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that McCoy would choose not to share the red alert. Little interesting that the red alert doesn't have the same audio cue in sickbay as it would the rest of the ship, because as soon as Kirk leaves sickbay, you can hear the audible alarm that accompanies the red alert. Maybe it's so that if there are actually injured people in sickbay, it doesn't further disturb them. Maybe that's a good explanation. But still interesting that McCoy would probably violate some kind of procedure or directive by not immediately alerting Captain Kirk to the red alert, because he has no idea what's going on.
True, but I also feel that he thinks since he only has a few seconds left, he's just going to have Kirk continue. He hasn't, it's been implied that Kirk is never around to do those tests. So he's like, he's already on the table. He only has a few seconds left. Everything's good. I'll tell him about the alert in 5 seconds.
Yeah, yes.
And I think that's true about your no audible tone, because, they need to be calm in the sick bay. No more mental anguish.
Sure.
So Kirk, as I mentioned, Kirk is gone. He is getting cleaned up because you can't go to the bridge all sweaty and nasty.
Well, specifically, he gets to the turbo lift. He calls to the bridge to get an update, finds out the exact circumstances, that they're not in immediate danger, but they don't know anything. So he makes the decision, I've got enough time to go take a shower and change.
This is also the first time I've seen in the turbo lift, instead of the buttons, it's like a twist. It's like twist and tells the computer to take him to the bridge or to his quarters, and off he goes. And then he can also talk to Spock or whoever's on the bridge via a monitor.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
A comm system.
Yes. After changing, Kirk finally gets to the bridge where all the other department heads have arrived, and they're all discussing this cube that's in front of them. How big it is, how wide it is, why is it just in the way? Why can't we go around it? Why is it not responding to them?
Yeah, it's not responding to hailing frequencies. They can scan what size it is, but they can't figure out what it's made out of. Scotty makes a comment that he doesn't know what's propelling it.
That's just a big old cube.
Just a big screensaver on their view screen. That would be kind of a funny episode if there's actually nothing at all in space. It's just no one wiggled the mouse. And so they're just seeing the screensaver kick on the view screen.
That could have been the idea to make this episode.
I think this was before computers and before screensavers were an actual thing.
This inspired the screensaver then.
There we go. Star Trek, bringing us more technology than we realize.
While they're all discussing, Lieutenant Bailey again brings up how he's not scared of anything. He's just trying to let everyone know his thoughts. And he also thinks since they have all the phasers, why can't they just blow it up?
Yeah. Again, a very, very telling moment where Lieutenant Bailey is having a very visceral, emotional reaction to the situation, which comes into play later in the episode.
And then, of course, Kirk, being a good leader, he just kind of looks at him and says, I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Bailey. And then, when this becomes a democracy, I thought that was kind of an extra jab in there.
Yeah, it's Kirk's way of speaking to the crew and verbally disciplining the crew without making it seem like he's being harsh or angry, but definitely reminding them that they are not in charge.
And then we have like this hard jump, and it's 18 hours later. The department heads are in the conference room. They have star maps, they have readings. They're trying to figure out what this cube is.
They're also trying to figure out, we get a little bit of a filler with a captain's log, but they do mention that there's no local planetary source that they can determine that the cube would have been launched from. They're trying to figure out who sent this cube to try to figure out its purpose.
And Spock's ideas are, it's either one, a space buoy, or, and then he like gives like a smirk, flypaper. And then of course Kirk makes a joke about how they probably shouldn't be sticking around then.
Right. Not as fun humor from Kirk as we get from Spock. I'm more of a fan of Spock's sense of humor.
Well, Kirk was right on the nose because flypaper, kind of has flies sticking to it.
I think the joke loses some of its meaning if you have to explain it to the audience.
I got all excited. And then, of course, after that, Spock mentions if they're just going to stay put, it just would be like a signal that they are just weak. So Kirk begins to dole out commands and actions. And just as he was calling on Bailey, he decides to, on his own.
Bailey decides on his own.
Yes, on his own, that he'll just have the phaser gun crew summoned. And then again, Kirk has to put him in his place that, no, wait for me to tell you what to do. And as navigator, you, Mr. Bailey, you need to plot a spiral course away from the cube.
Yeah, it's kind of a evasive maneuver pattern because just trying to move around it didn't work. So maybe something more complex like a spiral pattern to kind of roll out of its path will confuse it and break them free.
So they all proceed to the bridge so they can execute this fancy turn. And Kirk then tells Sulu that while this is happening, to begin at a quarter speed and then move to a half speed, which I didn't understand, to be honest. I'm assuming kind of increasing in speed.
Yeah, so pretend full impulse engines is 60 miles an hour, and Kirk orders half speed. He's ordering 30 miles an hour to be the current speed.
Oh, that makes sense because he also says impulse later. Okay, I see. I have to learn these things. So while they're trying to do these commands, there's this super loud, shrill beep, and it's just going faster and faster.
And the cube starts to spin faster and faster. The cube is obviously ramping up its reactions to the Enterprise,
which then makes radiation start pouring out.
And we don't really learn from what.
No.
At any point, we don't learn why the cube starts to generate or bathe the Enterprise in this increased level of radiation.
And, I mean, Spock is super, super concerned about the radiation.
Well, he's concerned because it's a level and a type of radiation that is fatal to life, to the humans, to the crew on board. So, yeah, it's a little concerning. They're about to be exposed to a nuclear reactor.
And while all of this is happening, Lieutenant Bailey, again, is starting to freak out. He's like, they're gaining on us. They're gaining on us. And Kirk is like, calm down. Just keep following my instructions.
Which is a good example of what I mentioned at the very top of this episode. This is an episode that is built on and is driven by these atmosphere theme building scenes. There's a long period of time that we're truncating into just a couple moments of explanation, but it's a longer period of time in the episode where the ship is trying to escape, the noise is growing, the cube is rotating faster, everyone's emotions are getting a little more ramped up, a little more ramped up. You can really start to feel as a viewer the stress that the crew is being put under because they're expressing that in their acting.
Exactly. And even trying to back up the Enterprise, the cube is right on top of them.
Matching speed. I think they go to warp. It matches their warp speed.
And then finally, Kirk does call for the phasers to be engaged. And let's just see if we can blow the cube up.
Yes. A risky maneuver. They're at warp. This object is generating radiation from an unknown source. Fun fact, sometimes when you blow up something generating radiation, it spews more radiation in a greater area. And it's really close to the ship. This entire time, it's not just keeping pace with the Enterprise, it's advancing on the Enterprise and getting closer and closer. So a risky move by Kirk, but again, not a lot of options left. They blow it up.
So after the cube is blown up, we would return back from the show's natural commercial break, and we hear Kirk's captain's log data entry. And he just talks about the cube has been destroyed. The ship has not been damaged a lot. He says ship's damage minor, but now he needs to know what to do. That decision is major versus the little damage. Do we keep going forward, or do we just turn around and get the heck out of Dodge? And so after that, we then are still back on the bridge, and Kirk and Spock are discussing this very thing. Like, what should we do? And Spock is like, well, we see no other planets around. If we go forward, won't we encounter another one of these? And Kirk reminds us, and Spock, that the mission of the Enterprise is to find and interact with other species and to learn and also share our own cultural information. So we going forward. And so Kirk also asks Spock, when going forward, do you think if we encounter the persons or person
or alien civilization,
that's where I was going, are they going to be as smart as us? Are they going to be as intelligent? Are they going to be mean? And Spock just answers with yes and yes. Because, anyone that can be out here in space and travel around it obviously has the intelligence to be able to do the actual feat.
Right.
I think it's also funny because Spock asks to Kirk, why are you asking me questions when you already know the answers? And Kirk replies, it's for my emotional security.
Yeah.
So you learn so much about everybody's relationship in this time of worrisome, the scary part. So then it's been decided. Kirk tells Lieutenant Bailey to set course to go forward, and Bailey is staring off into space, literally. So we see Sulu plug it in himself, like he's annoyed, but he just plots the course by leaning over and doing it.
And entering the commands into Lieutenant Bailey's station.
Yes, because they're sitting next to each other at this one table, for lack of a better term. And then he tells Sulu to go at warp 1, which I'm assuming is the speed, correct?
Yes.
So Kirk, he turns to leave, but before he fully leaves, he turns around and tells navigation and engineering, who is Lieutenant Bailey and Sulu, that they were sluggish on what they were doing and following commands. So during this period, they should probably be running drills and practicing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. The entire department was slow in Kirk's eyes in response to the cube. Probably the departments were fine, and probably Sulu was fine. This all probably comes down to Lieutenant Bailey and not reacting to orders, kind of freaking out, staring off into space. Sulu's had to reach over and correct things on his console several times. Kind of that moment where one person screws up, so everyone has to be punished kind of moment. But
well, we don't want to embarrass someone and harm the whole morale of the team.
Absolutely not. We need to ridicule Bailey. He's not fit for this position. That's my opinion. I would have fired him.
Well, this is the first time I've ever seen him, so I miss my other guy from last episode. So Kirk leaves. He is joined on the...
It's called a turbo lift.
Thank you. I was going to say elevator, and I knew it was wrong.
Those who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, the only version that we produce, I will probably cut out a good 5-second moment there where Jaci struggles to remember turbo lift.
So Kirk is joined on the turbo lift by McCoy, and they pop up. They're going up to the quarters.
They're going down to the quarters because the bridge is at the top of the ship. I'm not going to let that one get away with.
I think I need to draw like a depiction of the ship and where everything is so I can have it with me.
Yes. You want blueprints so that we can reference it every time?
Because I'm always going to say the wrong direction.
Yes. Anytime they go away from the bridge, they have to go down. The bridge is on the top floor.
That makes sense.
The look of epiphany on Jackie's face.
That way they can see everything out the window. But, so they're going down to the quarters, and...
It's not a window. It's a view screen. It's not a window. It's a computer screen.
Anyway.
Where are we in this whole thing? Let's get back on track.
Look who's going away. So, McCoy and Kirk are on the...
Here we go. I'm not going to step in. What are they on, Jaci?
The turbo lift.
Boom. It's literally called a turbo lift tease because it's an elevator pitch. We've done this dance before.
So they're going down to the quarters again.
Yes.
And they're discussing how maybe Lieutenant Bailey was promoted a bit early.
Yeah.
He seems a bit naive in his position.
Are they looking out a window when they're having this conversation?
No, but on the bridge they're looking out the window.
No. No.
So we're going down and they're discussing just, what happened.
And we're in their quarters.
Finally. And again, they're still going on. But in the background, though, we hear Bailey and Sulu doing the drills.
Yeah, it's mostly Bailey that's we hear over the comms in this background. But yeah, we do hear the background. Bailey sounds a little stressed out. If you pay attention to these background communications, it definitely sounds like someone who is not prepared to be in this position.
I mean, McCoy even brings that, brings light to that. Does that voice sound like he's secure in what he's doing to Kirk? So they still chit chat, and he's like, maybe he reminds you of someone maybe say 11 years ago when you started this, a little jab at Kirk. And then we're like interrupted, and my gal Janice, like super fast, walks in with lunch.
Again, no knocks.
No, it just door opens and she's in, and she's like, here's your lunch. You haven't eaten, to Kirk. And I swear that their placemats and napkins are like scarves. So she brings one scarf out, puts it on the desk, puts his lunch down, which is a bed of like romaine lettuce.
Kind of. I also just want to point out the way she's serving him. She's not just bringing him his lunch. This is a full-blown, waiter service. She's laying out all of the utensils. Does she tuck a napkin into his shirt? Does she put it in his lap?
She puts it in his lap. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's also going to be a little weird later on, some of her interactions. This is definitely not a moment for the character that I enjoy. Maybe she's in on the gag of, finish the thought.
But you're right. She's not like how she was in the previous episodes as being, take charge girl. So when she puts down all the food, then she brings up how McCoy changed his food card, which I guess is like orders on the menu, I'm assuming. And that's why he's getting a plate of lettuce, no dressing, no nothing. And McCoy tells Kirk, well, you were up a couple pounds. And then Janice like flutters away. That's when her ponytail was crooked. So she was annoyed, obviously, about her ponytail. I kid. Okay. They continue to chat, but then they're interrupted by someone from the bridge saying that they are getting a giant something on the sensors, but this is not a drill. So, please come back and tell us what to do, kind of, sort of. So, no lettuce lunch for Kirk. So they all go back up to the bridge.
Hey, they go back up to the bridge.
I wrote that down.
Right here. I literally just checked her note. She did write it down from our conversation earlier.
And Spock reports that this object is large. It is in the way. And finally, as we get closer, we see, I kind of called it a honeycomb at first, but as it was more like magnified on the screen, imagine all these umbrellas opened and then umbrellas opened on top of that to fill in all the gaps. It's actually really beautiful. And even Spock agreed with me because he said it was fascinating.
Yes. And it's huge. It's ginormous. It fills the view screen, not the window.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get some exterior shots to show both this alien sphere ship and the Enterprise is absolutely dwarfed by the size of the sphere.
And Bailey is so afraid. You can see it on his face. Because when, just like you said, how big it was, he's like, that's magnified that much. We haven't even been able to see what it looks like.
Right. And as the sphere is approaching the Enterprise, it locks onto the Enterprise using a tractor beam. Unlike the cube, this means the ship isn't really going to be able to try to escape or try to maneuver around it. It is being held in place by the sphere.
What is a tractor beam?
Literally, it is science fiction babble for technology where one object, usually a spaceship, projects some kind of gravitational force in the form of a beam to hold something in place, or if the beam is powerful enough to overcome the mass of the object it is holding, can physically move the object any way that you want it to.
Oh, okay. That makes complete sense now. Kirk tries hailing the ship so they can communicate, but it does not talk back to him.
Not in a traditional sense, but we do hear Bailey report to Kirk that he's getting some kind of communication over his navigation beam. Why the ship decides to communicate over the navigation beam, I have no idea. It's not explained. I don't even know in future contact and conversations, do they eventually slip over to the normal frequencies for communication? Is it always on the navigation beam? Never explained.
Because eventually they do talk to this thing with whatever frequency Uhura is using.
Yeah.
So it's like back and forth, tic-tac-toe kind of thing.
So a weird little throwaway in the episode they never really explain. But as they realize that the message is coming through from this giant sphere, Kirk has it played over the PA system for the bridge so they all can hear it.
This is when we're introduced to Baylock, who is the commander, head in chief, all kinds of awards of that spear-like thing. And he is basically telling the Enterprise that they are hostile. They blew up his own buoy. Like, why would you do that if you're not hostile?
And he explains that the cube was a buoy and its purpose was to warn ships about trespassing into space of Baylock's people. And And Kirk tries to respond by saying and argue against this by saying that they're not hostile, they didn't understand, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, like if you're just going to have a cube out there, well, shouldn't it have like a sign or some kind of thing saying this is just a buoy, please don't eat me or attack me?
Right. Something that's a little less subtle than what they encountered.
This is also where Baylock is scanning the ship for all of its information. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. And there is like humongous amount of turbulence, which I know it's not turbulence, but the ship is basically shaking and making all kinds of noise, throwing people all around. We see all the crew in the hallway being thrown from one side to the other. Great acting, but it's just like crazy. And then Kirk is like, we need to keep talking to them. And he orders Lieutenant Bailey to put a recorder marker down so that it could be recorded and future people can hear this.
Basically to be launched back towards Starfleet so that if the Enterprise is destroyed in this moment, Starfleet will at least have a record up until this point.
That makes so much sense. Okay. But Baylock didn't like that, and he destroyed it.
Baylock and Bailey. That's just dawning on me.
Baylock then tells them, you're not listening to me. You are out of bounds. You only have 10 minutes before I destroy you.
And he grants that 10 minutes by commenting to say that Baylock's people, the crew of this giant sphere ship, recognize that the crew of the Enterprise probably have some deity or some religion, and so the 10 minutes is being granted as a grace period for them to come to peace with their god before they die.
That was very nice of him.
Yep, absolutely nice is what we're going to describe that as.
But while that is happening, Spock is like, I'm going to see who we're talking to because I'm curious. So he's trying to find like a visual. And while he's doing that, McCoy and Scotty enter the bridge. And McCoy tells Kirk, everybody heard that we only have 10 minutes to live. So you might want to calm your people down. And Kirk gets on the intercom. So he tells everybody everything's going to be okay.
He specifically cites that Baylock and his people must be intelligent creatures because they have this superior technology, and to rely on the fact that they are intelligent because intelligence will prevail and allow everything to resolve in a peaceful manner.
Kirk tells Baylock, sorry, we're just going to turn around, go out the way we came. We didn't mean to startle you. Hope you have a better day. As they try to leave, they find out that the engines are dead, so they cannot go anywhere. But curiosity still, Spock is able to find a visual of who this Baylock is. The image that he was able to get, we have kind of what our brains assume an alien looks like. He is blue. He has weird eyes, like a triangular head, and just creepy and odd looking. Baylock tells them, I'm glad your curiosity was satisfied, but you only have 8 minutes left. So might want to start saying your prayers. So as it's counting down, and Bailey is starting to freak out and losing his mind. So to just calm him down, Kirk has to yell at him and say, you are relieved. You can go back to your quarters. And he has McCoy escort him there. We come back from a commercial break, and with only 4.5 minutes left, Kirk and Spock are talking, what they can do. Spock, pretty sure chess is his favorite game because he brings it up and talks about when you're out of maneuvers, it's checkmate.
Basically, it's Spock saying that he doesn't have any solutions for Kirk how to get out of this.
So while McCoy enters, they're discussing that, and he blames all of this wild activity on Bailey's part as him not being ready to be in the position that he's in. And then he's just kind of put aside because Kirk is all, we're going to do not chess, but poker. So Kirk then, through the frequency, speaks to Balak and says, you probably don't want to blow us up because although it's not documented in any of our memories that you just scanned, if you blew us up, we have this special thing called Corbomite that will blow up your ship too. So that would be a really bad idea.
Yes, to put it in layman's terms, Corbomite is the space version of I'm rubber, you're glue. In more technical terms, Kirk is trying to explain that all of Starfleet's ships are built with this material called Corbomite incorporated into the ship's design. And the feature of Corbomite is he explains it as any negative action against the ship. So let's pretend phasers or weapons. The Corbomite prevents that from destroying the ship and reflects the energy from the weapon back onto the attacker and magnifies it, thereby destroying the attacker.
And there's no reaction whatsoever from Balak. It's just empty.
So we get this really dramatic countdown through the rest of Balak's deadline, eating up time for the episode. But again, appreciative as a viewer because it builds up on this tension.
When Sulu reaches 30 seconds left, Lieutenant Bailey walks back onto the bridge and requests that he can return to his post, where Kirk allows him to do it. So they all can be there together. He's calmed down also, and Sulu continues the count. When the timer finally hits 0, they all just wait what's going to happen. This is also funny because at this point, even Spock goes, this poker game, this is interesting. Because, of course, we don't know what's happening. We're waiting for Balak's move.
Right. As the seconds stretch out after the timer reaches 0 with nothing happening, they start to think and assume that their bluff has worked.
Balak says that they will delay the destruction of the Enterprise if they prove that this Corbomite exists. And Kirk takes his time, makes him wait, and then says, denied. Then out of nowhere, Janice just pops in, all happy, with a tray of coffee, and it's warm, by the way. And when they ask her if the power's on, and she just like, nope, I just used my hand phaser and made it warm.
Again, we referenced it earlier, but this is another just awkward moment for this character where she's been regulated to a position of purely an assistant. And yes, a yeoman is supposed to be an assistant, an administrative assistant, and do these menial tasks. But serving dinner in this way, popping onto the bridge with coffee, literally in a moment where 45 seconds earlier, they all thought they were going to be dead. So Janice chose to spend the last 10 minutes of her life making coffee. Just awkward.
So they're drinking their coffee while they see from the main giant sphere a tiny little ship comes out, and it's questionable. Balak says that is his ship and that he will escort them to another location to see about their future. So,
well, specifically, he says they're going to get towed to a nearby planet where Balak and the crew of this little shuttle ship will maroon the crew of the Enterprise and then, I guess, take the Enterprise away to be destroyed later. It's basically their new plan to rid themselves of this dangerous threat of the Enterprise, since they can't just blow it up. Because, as we've now figured out, the bluff of the Corbomite has worked, and Balak and his people think that they can't actually destroy the Enterprise.
Because they want to live too.
Correct.
Got it. So Balak uses his own tractor beam to tow the Enterprise himself. And then we get a fancy commercial break we come back and we have another log that, well, they haven't resisted him yet, but the crew is hoping that since this is a tiny ship is towing the large Enterprise, that the engines will they would overheat and be unable to be used.
Yeah, and that this little smaller ship that's towing the Enterprise will run out of power. It won't be able to maintain the tractor beam that's towing the Enterprise. Banking on this idea that this is a very improvised and last minute plan thrown together by Baylock and his people. And so the Enterprise and Kirk are just playing possum, laying in wait, looking for their opening.
They realize that as they're going, the Enterprise is falling farther and farther behind the tiny ship. And so this is when Kirk takes his shot and orders them to start the engines. So as the two ships are fighting to, the Enterprise is trying to get away from the tiny ship. The tiny ship is trying to keep the Enterprise. Finally, they do get separated, but Scotty pops up onto the bridge. Everybody can come onto the bridge, it seems, and says, our engines are done. They're damaged, so we're just going to be broken. But if all that damage is to the Enterprise, what about the tiny ship? Speaking of, finally he talks to Uhura because she gets a very weak SOS signal in her frequency, and it is Balak calling for help. Kirk is like, what if he already contacted the mothership? They don't know, but if she can barely hear it, Uhura, then probably the mothership didn't hear it. So, being the nice humans that they are, they decide that they're going to help Balak and his crew. I mean, even though he almost killed them, they're nice and they're going to try to help them in return. So Scotty says, meet you at the transport room and bring someone with you. So Kirk decides that he will bring McCoy because he might need to have medical assistance. And he chooses Bailey. And I think he chooses Bailey to kind of like build him up because he's been through a pretty bad day.
Definitely Kirk would not have chosen Bailey if Bailey hadn't had that humbling moment at the end of the countdown where he returned to his station. So, yes, this is Kirk giving Bailey an opportunity to redeem himself and live up to his position.
And Spock does try to stop them, and Kirk has to be realistic and is like, if this is a trap, I need you to be here because you're second in command. So Kirk, McCoy, and Lieutenant Bailey go down to the transport room, and Scotty and another crew member, that crew member is wearing like a robe, Scotty tells them to bend over. There's not a lot of space over there, which was weird. So they are all like crouching down, getting ready to transport beam over to the other ship, and off they go. When they arrive to Balak's ship, they're confused because it's very quiet and small. And when they turn a corner, they see the image that they've been seeing on the screen this whole time, that alien-looking thing. But as they near it, they realize it's like a puppet, and they're intrigued. From there, we hear a voice from another room, and Kirk, McCoy, and Bailey follow the voice, and they see a very small person with the biggest eyebrows ever.
Yes. They meet the real Baylock, and by tiny,
he's physically small.
About the size of a 6 or 7-year-old.
There you go, yeah. And he's just chilling on the couch with pillows. And he's like, welcome to my ship.
Yes. It's very obvious that the voice of Baylock is being dubbed over by a voice actor. It's not the on-screen child actor playing it that's giving the lines. But for cheesy 1960s sci-fi, passable.
Yeah, it was interesting. And so we learn that Balok is bored. He's all by himself, and he uses Earth, quote unquote, culture as an example that the puppet and he are like Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll, but he is lonely and would like, companion, someone to talk with.
Yeah, he explains also that this was all a ruse. Again, he's by himself. There is no people. Balok is the only person that controls the entire sphere ship, and in reality, he does it all from this small shuttle. And Balok shares that he survives by creating these elaborate bluffs himself against anyone he encounters. The warning buoy, the giant sphere, the mannequin, the threats of violence, all are to present this superiority image to try to scare people away, to leave him alone, instead of revealing the truth that he is a tiny little man baby who might have some superior technology, obviously, but probably not as much as everyone else.
And Balak again admits that he's very bored and lonely, but he loves to learn about other cultures. And, if anybody wanted to stay and have a chit chat, he wouldn't be obliged. He wouldn't say no to it. So Bailey takes that opportunity to offer him staying after, Kirk is like, you can do it. So Bailey's like, I'll be happy to stay and have a little chit chat with you. And the episode closes with Balok taking the 3 Enterprise crew members on like a tour, and they're all like looking up and down in the backyard, not the backyard, in the hallway, and then it ends.
Yeah, the episode just kind of winds down and wraps up and fade to credits as Balok is giving this tour. He makes the final comment to Captain Kirk that they're both alike because they're both very proud of their ships. It's a very quick resolution to this episode, but that's where we roll credits. So Jaci, what did you think about season 1, episode 10, The Corbomite?
Overall, I really liked it. I love the music. It's fantastic, and each different thing that happened, the music changed and different instruments were showcased, but that's how my brain works. I think I would watch it again and see more specific parts of what you picked out, but I wish that it had more to the ending. All of these episodes that we've been watching, it's like action, 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 things happening, and then we're done. It's like I want to have more in there with his little ship, or why does he have? I don't know. I just needed more. I think at the end.
Yeah, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, it's a very quick wrap up to the entire episode. I didn't go back and look and see, but it's a very short little chunk of the episode where they beam over. We get a brief conversation with Balok. Again, it's an episode that doesn't have a lot of filler when it comes to dialogue. It's very much short on dialogue and a lot of scenes of just building this tension. So it would have been nice if we had maybe shifted some of it. But overall, for a bottle episode of everything taking place on the Enterprise, they really do find a way to make it not just about some intercrew argument or some other plot point. It draws us out of the Enterprise with the encounter with these 2 alien spacecrafts. So I really enjoyed it.
I do have a question. I noticed that when they were going in the transporter room, Kirk and Bailey were given like a sash belt thing, and Kirk has his out and Bailey tucked his up. What are those? Because I've never seen them before.
I don't know if we ever see him again.
Oh.
I had it in my notes. We didn't talk about it in the moment. It's almost like a utility. I'll just describe it as a utility belt.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I'm going to go off of. It's a utility belt where they clip some things. This still is an earlier episode. It's not a pilot episode. It's not being done pre-production or pre-airing of the first episode. It's being filmed after the show is underway. They still are trying to find some of their roots. Again, we didn't mention Uhura is wearing the wrong color uniform. She's wearing gold instead of red. So it's still very early where they're trying to figure some things out. Don't know that we ever see the cloth utility belts ever again. But I do have some trivial tidbits or fun facts for the episode. First aired November 10th, 1966. This is the first use of Spock's phrase of fascinating in response to seeing the overwhelming size of the sphere of Balok's ship. The line originated and was done at the suggestion of the episode's director, Joseph Sargent. The original script included Leonard Nimoy reacting to the sphere in a more fearful way to line up with the rest of the crew. But director Joseph Sargent instead suggested react with a more intellectual curiosity, logical phrase. Again, helping form Spock as a character, which again is awesome. They still don't mention Starfleet at this point in the show. I think I refer to Starfleet a couple times simply for ease of reference. Starfleet is ultimately what the governing body is that the Enterprise falls under. But in the episode, in the moment, it's still defined as the United Earth Space Probe Agency. Again, this gets retconned and this gets changed as Star Trek progresses. The original sphere ship was made from ping pong balls glued to a plaster of Paris shell. It doesn't come across in the episode that we watched or that you can currently view on Paramount because, again, we're watching the remastered series where they make changes. But just for Jackie's benefit, I'm going to show comparison shots here. So I'm just pointing out to Jackie, this is the original sphere that would have aired in 1966, and this is the remastered version that we watched.
It's pretty close.
It's fairly close, but you can see in the original version ping pong balls.
Yeah, it's more like molecules in science instead of those umbrellas that I were.
Jackie referenced them as being umbrellas because in the remastered version, they're not smooth. They have detail to them. They're reflective. They resemble more like a disco ball instead of a ping pong ball.
So creative. Amazing.
The child actor who played Child Balok was Clint Howard. Everyone knows Clint Howard. I'm showing Jackie some pictures of Clint Howard in some other roles here. Jackie's kind of nodding along like...
He has the same teeth.
He does have the same teeth. That's very distinctive.
And his eyebrows are just as bushy.
Yes, but he's a character actor that's appeared in many, many things. Apollo 13 was one of them. He was in The Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey live-action version. But
it's always so sad when we know the actors, like their face in all these different things, and we don't get to know who they are. But that's neat. He grew up and now making all the money.
Yeah, his dad was an actor. Clint Howard played several roles in Star Trek throughout the years. We'll encounter him over and over again.
Oh, good.
But when he played the character Balok, he was presented an option where he could either shave his head or he could wear a bald cap. And he chose to wear the bald cap because he, as a kid, he's 6, he didn't want to be teased by his classmates for having a shaved head.
Oh, poor little guy.
Ironically enough, he ended up going bald
Hmm.
as an adult. And as a bald man myself, I sympathize with him. He being Clint Howard, later auditioned to be Luke Skywalker in Star Wars A New Hope. But George Lucas recognized him as Balok from this episode of Star Trek. And he apparently got too embarrassed and he blew the audition, according to him.
Oh.
Finally, my last fun fact about Clint Howard is he also shares a birthday with George Takei, who is Sulu. My last trivial tidbit for the episode, the voice of Scary Balok, not Child Balok, but the Scary Balok when he's intimidating the Enterprise, is none other than Ted Kennedy, who played Ruck in What Are Little Girls Made Of? also known as Lurch from the original Addams Family.
Since you bring up the Starfleet, can you tell me, though, what the First Federation is?
So it wasn't mentioned in the episode. The First Federation was the fictitious civilization that Baylock claims his people are from.
Okay.
The First Federation doesn't exist in reality because, again, it's just Baylock.
Oh, so he like poofed up his name to be more scary.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But those have been your Tribble fun facts.
I love learning about this.
And this is the part of the episode where we share our episode ranking. This is where we pretend the episode is a member of our crew of a fictitious starship, and we assign the episode a rank. A higher rank for the episode not only means we were more entertained by the episode when we watched it, but we also consider the episode to be a more important member of the crew of our starship. The opposite is also true. A lower rank means we weren't entertained by it, and we consider the episode to be disposable or less important to the crew of our ship. Our ranking, very quickly from bottom to the top for this season, is Ensign, Lieutenant Junior Grade, Lieutenant, Lieutenant Commander, Commander, Captain, and Admiral. We post all of our rankings to our Patreon on Wednesday, the day after the episode airs, at patreon.com/TreksandTangents for anyone to view, because this is an audio podcast and sometimes visuals are hard. Last week, Jaci rated Dagger of the Mind as a commander. This is the first out of 5 commanders that she can have on her starship, or 5 rankings she can assign this season. That would be an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Jaci, what rank would you assign to this episode as it joins your crew of the USS Galactic Glitterbee?
We would be happy to have it join our Lieutenant Commander spot.
A Lieutenant Commander, which is going to be the 4th out of 10 slots that can be assigned to Lieutenant Commander, joining such ranks as Mud's Women. Jaci, why would you give it this rank?
I have it in this rank at the moment just because I really, really liked learning more about the crew members, but I can't make it higher. I wanted to, but I can't make it higher with them having Janice do such terrible, like, lower than secretary work. And even though it's remastered, I couldn't get over, like, I can see Spock's ears, you know, like, there's just tiny things. And I wanted to give it higher, but those 2 things bothered me a lot.
Well, and that's a measurement of the metric. We rank it based on how entertained we were when we watched it, not after we've watched it, spent a week coming up with show notes, and then talking about it for a couple hours. So with that, looking to my crew for the season, I'm going to assign the rank for this episode on the USS Cosmic Shark. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to give it the rank of Captain. That's going to be the only slot for Captain, so it's the only episode I've ranked that high. It surpasses Commander. My Commander ranks are getting kind of full. I gave it this rank because I personally really enjoyed this type of an episode. I mentioned it several times. It was an episode that didn't try to cram in a bunch of facts and dialogue. It was an episode that took advantage of special effects and circumstances to build the tension up for the episode. If you eliminate all of those scenes where we're just staring at a spinning cube, or we're just staring at the awesome size of this sphere made out of ping pong balls compared to the Enterprise, this 50-minute episode would probably be reduced down to about 30 minutes. So it's a lot of time spent building up the tension using these scenes and techniques, which I really enjoyed.
No, that makes complete sense. And your crew looks more balanced than mine, that's for sure.
My crew certainly has higher ranks toward the top. Your crew is a lot of inmates running the asylum.
Because I'm crazy.
So, as a reminder, we can promote or demote episodes as we need to. I probably will end up demoting this away from captain at some point, but right now it's going to be the highest ranking member of the crew. I don't have an admiral. I know the rest of the episodes for the season, so I have an admiral in mind, but we haven't gotten
there
yet.
Are you cheating?
It's not cheating if you've watched the episodes already as part of my role in this podcast.
Ugh.
Again, as a reminder, we'll post a visual representation of our graphics showing our rankings up to this episode on our Patreon at patreon.com/TreksandTangents. We will post these on Wednesday, the day after the episode airs, and it's available for anyone to view. We'll be back next week to trek through another episode, but first, before we go, we'll have Jaci give a turbolift tease or elevator pitch. That's why we call it an elevator or turbolift. They do the same thing. Jaci will give the elevator pitch to next week's episode, where I will give her the title, and without any other information or knowledge, Jaci will try to guess the plot of the episode. The next 2 episodes are a 2-parter. We talked about maybe condensing them down into one single episode, but we're going to keep them separate. We'll make some adjustments, but we're going to keep these next 2 episodes as separate episodes of the podcast and not cheat and condense it down to one. Jaci, next week's episode is entitled The Menagerie Part 1.
Well, I know what a menagerie is, and that involves a lot of animals, but that would be kind of scary in space. But I mean, that's where I guess we're going to stay. A lot of something's going on the ship.
And we'll check in next week and see if Jaci's overly vague guess as she hedges her bets once again this week is close to being accurate. If you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast at Patreon on patreon.com/TreksandTangents. Again, this Friday, the 26th, the day after Christmas, for those who celebrate, we will be releasing our first episode where we dive into the Star Trek Original Series animated episodes. Fun little bonus for our Patreon crew members. Again, you can join at patreon.com/TreksandTangents to become a crew member and get that episode when it goes live. We plan on releasing one of those episodes on the animated series once a month on the 4th Friday, and we've got some other things planned for our Patreon members, so stay tuned. You can also follow us on X at Treks_Tangents. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at Treks and Tangents. Jaci, where can people find you, and what are you up to?
You can find me on Instagram as Jibboom, JIBBOOM. I have tons of things on there. My music, dog training, dressing for your size, fashion, you name it, I got it. And I have also been having the best time on Whatnot, where I have a store on there, and it is called Glitter Bow Bunny Boutique. But you can find me under glitterbow_bunnies. And that's that.
And you can watch me stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundtown. I don't have a fixed schedule because I have a day job, but I'm trying to be more consistent. I'm also trying to be more consistent with a friend to the show, Rebecca, and do some streaming on Sundays. So you can check Rebecca out streaming with me as well. Little stream with friends on a Sunday. On YouTube, I post video games and other random content on my main channel, Pirate Pound Town. I have a secondary channel, coin collecting and hobby content at Pirate Treasure Hunting. And I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Pound Town. Finally, you can find me on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal because I am proudly banned as Pirate on Instagram. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
It's Corbomite, not carbonite.
And it's a view screen, not a window. End transmission.